There's a forgotten doorway in the path of manifestation, a door that doesn't open with force nor respond to striving. It waits for something far more subtle, a softening, a stillness, a sacred exhale that says, "I'm ready to receive because I already am." This isn't the teaching most people hear when they first enter the world of spiritual creation. They're told to visualize more, to affirm louder, to hustle harder, even within their so-called spiritual practice. But this only deepens the old wound, the belief that you must do more to deserve more. And yet, as Neville Goddard whispered through time, the secret was never in the doing. It was always in the assumption. And assumption begins, not with action, but with acceptance. There's a kind of pain we don't talk about enough. It hides behind vision boards and spiritual checklists. It looks like motivation, but it's quietly draining you. It's the pain of trying so hard to become what deep down you already are. You meditate, you journal, you do the work, but a part of you is still asking, have I done enough to deserve this? And that part is tired, not because it's weak, but because it's forgotten how to rest in its own divine certainty. You're not wrong for wanting more. You're not broken for feeling exhausted. You've just been taught to chase what can only be received in stillness. Modern science echoes what mystics always knew. Bruce Lipton's work on epigenetics shows that the body under stress, the cortisol-flooded, over-alert body, cannot access the gene expressions that support change, renewal, and expansion. In other words, when you're anxious, your cells shut the door on transformation. And not because you're failing, but because your system is trying to protect you. The same protection that once kept you safe is now keeping your desires at arm's length. Not because you're undeserving, but because your biology hasn't been taught to feel safe receiving what you've asked for. So what if we've been getting it backwards all along? What if relaxing is not a lack of discipline, but the highest form of alignment? What if the stillness you keep avoiding is actually the frequency where your miracle already lives? You've been trying to download a new reality while your inner system is overheating. The mind is buzzing. The breath is shallow. The nervous system is sprinting. And yet, all manifestation begins in stillness. Relaxation isn't a luxury. It's the reboot, the sacred moment when you become compatible with what you've already claimed. This isn't about giving up. This is about giving in, letting the current of your own soul carry you back to truth. You're not here to earn your abundance. You're here to remember that it was never not yours. Let the doing rest for a moment. Let the striving exhale. Because the door you've been pushing against doesn't open outward. It opens inward. And it's unlocked. The moment you stop trying to prove you deserve to enter. Why trying hard is a form of spiritual self-sabotage. There is a silence that only reveals itself after exhaustion. Not the exhaustion of physical labor, but the spiritual fatigue of chasing something you were meant to rest into. You've been taught that effort equals worth, that the harder you work for your desires, the more you prove you deserve them. But this belief, though well-intentioned, becomes a form of self-sabotage when carried into the sacred space of manifestation. Because the more you strive to achieve alignment, the more you affirm, silently, subconsciously, that you are not yet enough. The chronic achiever doesn't stop at work or ambition. They bring this energy into their spiritual life too. And so, manifestation becomes another to-do list. Visualization becomes a performance. Meditation becomes a test. You keep doing the right things, saying the right affirmations, repeating the words. But underneath it all, the vibration is one of lack. You are screaming into the void and wondering why the universe seems so quiet. But the truth is, it's not quiet. You just can't hear the guidance when your inner noise is louder than your faith. This is the law of reversed effort. The harder you push to receive what is already yours, the more resistance you create. Imagine trying to force a seed to grow faster by shouting at it, digging it up, or hovering over it with anxiety. The soil cannot yield to that kind of energy. It only responds to presence, patience, and quiet belief. And so does your reality. When you try to manifest from a place of urgency, you are not aligning with the future you desire. You are aligning with the fear that it won't come. There's something else hidden beneath the hustle. A secret fear, too sacred to name. The fear that maybe you are unworthy unless you've suffered for your success. That maybe you're not enough unless you've proved it with sacrifice. But manifestation does not respond to how hard you try. It responds to who you believe you are. And if you're trying to become something through exhaustion, You're unconsciously reinforcing the idea that you're still lacking. So here is your quiet invitation, not to do more, but to see more, to observe the places where your spiritual path has become another race, where your rituals are no longer acts of devotion, but acts of desperation. Let this be your ease inventory, not a judgment, but an awakening, an inner scan of where you've turned sacred practice into subtle punishment. And gently, without blame, let it go, because the divine doesn't respond to effort, it responds to energy, and the most powerful energy of all is the stillness of knowing it's already done. The nervous system doesn't lie, and it doesn't manifest in fear. There is a language beneath your thoughts. It speaks in pulses, rhythms, and breath. It's not your mind, it's your nervous system. And while your mouth may say, "I believe," if your body is bracing, your frequency is still coded in fear. This is the great contradiction in so many spiritual journeys. A person sits in meditation, repeating affirmations, visualizing the life they want, but inside, their breath is shallow, their chest is tight, their heart is on guard, and the universe does not respond to words alone. It responds to coherence, it responds to truth. You cannot fake safety, you cannot outthink the signals your body is sending. If you're visualizing wealth while your nervous system is screaming for survival, what you're really broadcasting is lack. The image might be beautiful, but the emotional current is still fear. And fear, even spiritualized fear, creates static in the field of creation. The quantum field doesn't interpret your language, it interprets your state. And if your state is dysregulated, disconnected, or driven by silent panic, no amount of mental repetition will bridge that gap. Science now confirms what mystics have always lived. The parasympathetic nervous system, the state of rest, digest, and receive, is the gateway to true manifestation. This is where the body softens enough to believe. This is where your imagination isn't just tolerated by the brain, but embodied by the whole system. Until your body feels safe, your vision will always feel distant. Until your breath slows down, your manifestations remain theoretical. They cannot anchor into a body that is still running from imaginary danger. So before you try to align with your future, ask yourself, what state am I in right now? Is my chest open or closed? Is my breath fluid or held? Is my heart soft or armored? You are not failing if your body is dysregulated. You are simply being called to return to the real foundation of creation. Not the mind, but the breath, the silence, the slowness. Begin there. Let your body arrive first, and your reality will follow. When you try to collect rain in a burning bucket, it doesn't matter how open the sky is. The water will evaporate before it ever fills you. And that's what it feels like to manifest in a state of stress. Ideas come, insights visit, synchronicities knock, but nothing stays. Because the vessel is not ready, not because it's broken, but because it's overheated. Your nervous system isn't resisting your blessings. It's protecting you from what it doesn't yet believe is safe. Teach it otherwise. Not through pressure, but through peace. Not through force, but through felt stillness. Because once the body feels safe, the miracles don't need permission. They simply arrive. To the logical mind, surrender sounds like defeat, like silence after failure, like giving up on the dream because it hasn't arrived on time. But the soul knows better. The soul knows that surrender is not an end, but a doorway, a quiet, sacred threshold where control dissolves and true alignment begins. We've been taught to confuse surrender with passivity, to see it as weakness, as if letting go meant losing power. But the opposite is true. Surrender is the most potent act of creation, because in surrender the ego steps aside, and the self, the timeless, infinite self, takes its place. There is a deep tension that lives inside many spiritual seekers. A silent war between desire and doubt, between intention and impatience. And in that war, surrender feels dangerous, like something is being taken from you. But surrender is not about losing, it's about receiving. It's about loosening your grip on how things should arrive, so that life can deliver them in the only way they truly can. Not through effort, but through resonance. Not through chasing, but through alignment. When you accept what is, you are not giving up your future. You are making space for it. Acceptance is not resignation, it's recalibration. A neurological and emotional shift that softens your frequency, and opens your mind to new patterns, new possibilities, new solutions. In that moment of surrender, the nervous system shifts, the breath deepens, the energy field expands, and your reality begins to reorganize, not because you forced it, but because you became coherent with the version of you who no longer needs to try. This is what people often miss. Surrender isn't the absence of desire, it's the release of tension around it. You don't throw away your dream. You unclench your fist so that for the first time you can actually hold it. You let go of chasing and begin receiving. You stop asking when and start feeling now. That is surrender. It's not silence from the universe. It's the frequency where the universe can finally speak. So let yourself exhale, not because everything is done, but because in that exhale, you align with the one who knows it already is. And from that stillness, everything changes. Not because you pushed, but because you remembered. When the soul is at peace, reality listens. When the heart is open, life responds. And when you stop trying to control the dream, you become the one it's been searching for all along. Before we move forward, take a breath with me and feel what's shifting inside you. Because if this message is resonating, if a quiet part of you is saying, "This is what I've needed to hear," then I've left something special for you in the pinned comment. Not another step, not another task, but something to help you experience what we're talking about, not just understand it. Let your curiosity guide you there. You might find exactly what your nervous system has been waiting for. Now let's continue, because the next truth will change how you see manifestation forever. There is a hidden doorway between thought and form, and it is not found in effort, it is found in rhythm. Not the rhythm of doing, but the rhythm of the mind when it enters a softer state. Beneath the high-speed chatter of beta brainwaves lies a quieter frequency, alpha. This is the brain's natural rhythm during deep relaxation, gentle focus, and imaginative flow. And this is where the bridge to manifestation lives, not in hyper-awareness, but in that sacred space where the conscious and subconscious meet in calm harmony. So many are stuck in overthinking. They plan, analyze, visualize, but from the tight grip of a mind that never truly slows down. And in this beta state, their thoughts are loud, but their energy is scattered. They create images, but without emotion. They affirm, but without embodiment. The result? A vision that feels distant, like a movie playing behind glass. But when you drop into alpha, something shifts. The inner scene becomes tactile. The emotion becomes real. The body begins to believe. And belief, in this sacred field, becomes a vibration. Alpha is not a theory. It is biology. And yet it is also mystery. It's the state your brain enters as you're falling asleep. That liminal space where the dream begins to feel more real than the room. It's also the state induced by deep meditation, rhythmic breathing, and sacred stillness. In this space, your nervous system slows, your emotional body opens, and your imagination, unburdened by logic, becomes a vessel of creation. Neville Goddard called it the state akin to sleep. Modern science calls it alpha, but both speak of the same truth. This is the zone of transmission. This is where feeling is no longer pretend. It is power. You cannot force your way into alpha. You soften into it, you allow it, you cultivate it with reverence. Especially before sleep when the veil is thin and your mind becomes a garden. What you plant here, what you imagine as already true, echoes into the subconscious with clarity. Your dreams begin to shift. Your mornings begin to change. And your external life, slowly but surely, mirrors the inner tone you set in the quiet. If beta is static, alpha is signal. You are always tuned to something. But until you enter this calm, centered state, your antenna will only pick up the noise of the world. In alpha, you receive what is already yours. You align with the frequency of completion. You no longer ask, "How will it happen?" You simply feel it happening, and the field responds. Not because you've convinced it, but because you've become it. Sometimes, the most radical shift doesn't come through another technique. It arrives in the stillness that follows surrender. There was a man, dedicated, spiritual, disciplined, who had been trying to manifest financial breakthrough for years. He had done the affirmations, the visualizations, the journaling. He had studied Neville, followed the laws, repeated the mantras, and yet something remained stuck. Not because he was wrong, but because he was still trying to force alignment instead of becoming it. He wasn't lazy. He was exhausted. He had turned his spiritual practice into a pressure cooker, an endless pursuit of the perfect state, the perfect vibration, the perfect vision. And in that pursuit, he had forgotten the very essence of manifestation, receptivity. Then one evening, something inside him broke, not in despair but in clarity. He stopped, not out of defeat but from a deep, sacred weariness. He sat in silence. No affirmations, no rituals, just breath, just presence. And in that space, something shifted. Over the following days, he began to breathe differently. He began to feel rather than force. He replaced constant scripting with a simple breath before action, and in that breath, he found stillness. In that stillness, he found clarity. And in that clarity came a vision, an idea so aligned, so clean, it needed no convincing. It didn't come with tension. It came with calm certainty. And within weeks, that idea brought him an offer. Unexpected, yet perfectly timed. A six-figure opportunity, born not from effort, but from coherence. He didn't attract this by striving. He attracted it by becoming available. He didn't chase the outcome. He aligned with the energy of already having it. His nervous system was no longer screaming, "Not enough." His breath was no longer shallow with anxiety. His body had become a match for what his soul had already claimed. And in that congruence, the field responded. There is something deeply magnetic about inner peace. Not the performative peace of pretending, but the grounded serenity of embodiment. When your actions are no longer frantic attempts to fix yourself, but quiet expressions of alignment, everything begins to change. You stop demanding signs and start living as the sign. You stop chasing vibration and begin living in the tone of fulfillment. That one breath before action, that pause before reacting, that stillness before planning. These are not delays. They are recalibrations. They are the moments when you shift from doing to being, from hoping to knowing, from effort to essence. And once you arrive there, life doesn't need to be pushed. It meets you where you already are. There's a moment on the spiritual path that almost everyone reaches. A moment of quiet frustration where you whisper to yourself, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. You've felt the magic. You've seen the synchronicities. You've had moments where the universe felt alive and responsive, as if your thoughts were being heard in real time. But then, silence, delay, doubt, as if the signal suddenly cut out. And in that confusion, the mind begins to question, is this real? Or am I imagining it all? But the inconsistency isn't in the universe. It's in the signal you're sending. The field is always responsive, but it responds to your dominant vibration, not your momentary hope. When your emotional state is unstable, when you shift from certainty to fear, from peace to panic, your signal becomes scrambled, like a GPS trying to route you while you keep changing destinations. One moment you are aligned, the next you are doubting, and while your desire is clear, your frequency keeps rewriting the instructions. This is what happens when you seek signs to feel safe. When you ask the world to confirm your worth before you've claimed it internally. It feels innocent, even spiritual. But it is often a subtle outsourcing of power, a disguised form of fear, dressed in the language of alignment. And the result is vibrational inconsistency. The field doesn't know where to meet you, because you haven't stayed long enough in one version of yourself for the bridge to form. Consistency isn't about perfection, it's about returning, again and again, to the inner tone of already having, already being, already knowing. And yes, this requires emotional discipline, but not the rigid kind. It's not about suppressing your feelings or pretending to be high vibe when you're not. It's about gently stabilizing your inner state so that your signal becomes clear, so that you stop resetting your frequency every time fear visits. There's a difference between navigating contrast and being ruled by it, between noticing doubt and becoming doubt. Your power lies in staying with your chosen vibration long enough for reality to mirror it. This is why sometimes things seem to manifest effortlessly, and other times they slip through your fingers. It's not random. It's not punishment. It's coherence. And when your inner weather stabilizes, the universe stops sending mixed signals, because you've stopped sending them first. There is a kind of work that no one sees. It doesn't look impressive. It doesn't come with checklists, timelines, or visible effort. But it is the most powerful force in manifestation. It's the quiet shift in identity, the sacred, invisible decision to live as the one who already is, not just in thought, but in tone, posture, breath, and presence. This is where reality begins to rewire, not through outer performance, but through inner transformation. Many chase results through action. They move, they push, they build routines. But deep beneath the doing, their self-image hasn't changed. They still see themselves as someone reaching, hoping, trying to become. And so, even when the external steps are correct, the internal frequency cancels the signal, because the quantum field responds not to what you do, but to who you are being. And being is not defined by words. It's felt. It's broadcasted through your energy, your nervous system, your unconscious tone. The Galatea effect in psychology teaches that people rise or fall according to how they perceive themselves, not just what they say, but what they embody. If you still see yourself as the struggler, the seeker, the one trying to get there, the universe mirrors that image faithfully. But when you begin to see yourself truly as the one for whom it already happens, the mirror shifts, not because reality changed, but because you did. This is the invisible work, the sacred rehearsal of embodiment throughout your day. Not grand gestures, but subtle, consistent choices. Walking with a different posture, breathing with more space, speaking with the energy of I am. Not forcing confidence, but softening into it. Not faking wealth, but feeling what it means to already be supported. These micro moments are not symbolic. They are vibrational architecture. They shape your field, and your field shapes your life. The real shift isn't when the world notices you've changed. It's when you no longer recognize the version of you who used to wait, used to beg, used to question whether you deserved. That version fades, not with noise, but with presence. You don't make it happen anymore. You simply notice. You have become the one it happens to. And in that becoming, the outer world has no choice. It aligns. It reflects. It meets you exactly where you already are. There is a hidden pattern in modern manifestation that few talk about. A cycle of inspiration, followed by overconsumption, followed by burnout. It starts with a spark, a new technique, a fresh vision, a wave of motivation. And then comes the scrolling, the planning, the binge learning. And while all of it feels like movement, it often ends in paralysis. Not because the dream is wrong, but because the nervous system is overwhelmed. The body is saturated with dopamine. And without grounding, that chemical high becomes a spiritual hangover. Dopamine, in its essence, is not the enemy. It is the molecule of anticipation, of forward movement, of desire. But when it's activated without embodiment, when you chase the thrill of potential without integrating the energy of arrival, you create imbalance. You're constantly reaching, fantasizing, thinking about the future, but never actually living as if it's now. The result is energetic fatigue, reward fatigue, a sense of having done everything while still feeling empty. You begin to confuse stimulation with alignment. You think you're making progress because your mind is busy, but your body feels disconnected. You feel spiritually productive but emotionally depleted. The vision boards grow, but the inner peace shrinks. And soon you're drunk on potential, intoxicated by what could be, while your real grounded self is waiting, sober, ready, and ignored. This is not about giving up your dreams. It's about detoxing from the noise around them, returning to presence, letting the high of someday dissolve into the calm of already, replacing constant seeking with silent receiving. This is the true grounding of vision. It's not about planning more. It's about becoming the version of you who doesn't need to escape into fantasy, because your frequency is already aligned with fulfillment. Your nervous system cannot sustain peak after peak without rest, without integration, without the sweet, sacred silence that follows embodiment. If you never land in the now, your manifestation becomes an endless horizon, always close, never here. But when you step out of stimulation and into self-recognition, the game changes. You are no longer chasing your vision. You are walking it, living it, becoming the ground from which it naturally rises. And in that groundedness, you no longer need to prove the vision is real, because you are the proof. There is a quiet frustration that lingers in the hearts of many devoted seekers. They sit in meditation every morning. They breathe deeply, focus their thoughts, repeat their mantras. They've created a sanctuary of spiritual discipline, And yet the change they long for remains elusive. The abundance, the relationship, the opportunity, it all still feels far away. Not because they lack sincerity, but because something essential has been left behind. They are meditating from absence, not embodiment. Observing from a distance, instead of living from the end. Relaxation alone is not the portal. You can be still, and yet still identified with the old self. You can quiet the mind and still carry the vibration of not yet. Without emotional encoding, without identity shift, meditation becomes spiritual escapism, a beautiful pause, but not a transformation. You are calm, but not coherent, present, but not aligned. The quantum field doesn't respond to silence alone. It responds to who you become in that silence. Neville Goddard's teachings are clear. It is not the act of imagining that changes things. It is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The emotional certainty that what you see inwardly is already true. When this is missing, you are simply watching dreams on an internal screen, detached, like a passive observer. But when you inhabit the scene, when your breath, your posture, your emotion all confirm it is already done, you move from visualization to creation. You don't need more hours in meditation. You need more presence in identity, more intimacy with the version of you that no longer hopes, but knows. This doesn't mean perfection. It means emotional honesty. It means asking, am I truly feeling it real, or am I hoping it will become real? One carries power, the other carries delay. You are not here to observe clouds and wait for change. You are here to script weather, to become the climate of your desired reality. This is where meditation becomes manifestation, when it is not a pause from the world, but a rehearsal of the new world you already inhabit inside. When you rise from stillness not with vague peace but with embodied conviction, that is when things begin to move. Not because you demanded them, but because you've become the only version of you they could ever meet. Relaxing doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing from being. There's a misunderstanding woven into the idea of rest, a false belief that relaxation means passivity, that to slow down is to stop, that to pause is to lose momentum. But true relaxation is not the absence of action. It's the transformation of the energy behind it. It is not about doing less. It's about doing from a different state, a deeper alignment, a state where action is no longer fueled by pressure, but by presence. Not by fear of missing out, but by the quiet certainty that nothing real can pass you by. In our world, urgency is praised, busyness is rewarded. And so, when we try to bring that same energy into spiritual work, we confuse movement with progress. We believe that inspired action means constant effort, but when action is born from inner misalignment, it loses power. You might be doing all the right things, but if your internal state is anxious, rushed, or disconnected, the results will mirror that energy. True manifestation doesn't come from how much you do. It comes from the version of you who is doing it. The most magnetic actions are born from stillness. They rise naturally without force. They feel clear, uncomplicated. They don't drain you, they energize you. And this is the paradox of spiritual power. The more you relax into your true identity, the more potent your movement becomes. When you shift from doing to prove, to doing from knowing, your field becomes clean. Your steps carry weight. Your choices become echoes of the self that already has. This is what it means to check in with your being state. To ask, not with judgment but with curiosity, who is taking this action? The version of me that's trying to rush the process, or the one who trusts that it's already unfolding? From this awareness, even small actions become infused with coherence. You stop chasing signs. You start acting like the sign. You stop forcing outcomes. You begin embodying inevitability. Relaxed action is not lazy. It's precise. It flows like jazz, improvised, alive, attuned to the moment. It responds to inner rhythm, not external pressure. And when you live from this space, something shifts. You are no longer driven by fear, by scarcity, by the need to earn your future. You are moved by presence. And presence never needs to prove itself. It simply radiates. It simply knows. And from that knowing, everything you touch begins to align with the ease already living inside you. Effortlessness is evidence that you've aligned. There is a sacred kind of power that emerges when you stop trying to prove and start allowing. Effortlessness is not laziness. It is alignment made visible. As Neville said, be still and know. Stillness is the signal that you've remembered. It's already done. Stress closes the body to receiving, but peace reopens it. When you relax into your identity, not hope for it, but become it, reality responds. The seed doesn't strive, it surrenders. And in that surrender, growth becomes inevitable. So let effort fall away. Let receiving feel natural. Because when it flows without force, that's how you know you're aligned. If something in you is still listening, still reaching, check the pinned comment. It's there for a reason.